The moment you fall in love with a car, it doesn't start at the dealership. It doesn't start with a handshake or a financing agreement or someone handing you keys across a desk. It starts at night, alone, scrolling through listings you can't afford, looking at cars you absolutely shouldn't buy, and seeing one that refuses to leave your mind no matter how many times you close the browser. Every car enthusiast knows this moment, but there's something different about the first time you do this with Porsche. Something that hits harder, stays longer, and changes you in ways you won't understand until years later. You keep reopening the same listing. You've memorized it by now, the mileage, the modification list, that one blurry photo where you can almost see the paint chips on the hood. You've clicked through the gallery 17 times. You've zoomed in on the seats to check for tears. You've studied the engine bay like you actually know what you're looking at. It's a cheap 944, or maybe a high mileage 986 Boxster with the manual transmission that somehow survived. Maybe it's a first-gen Cayman that's been through 3 owners and has a story in every scratch. The listing says runs great, some minor issues, which you know is code for please have money saved for repairs, but you don't care. You open the insurance calculator, you run the fuel estimates, you Google average cost of ownership, and immediately close the tab when you see the numbers. None of it matters because this isn't about logic. This is about the dream starting to feel real. And that's when the spiral begins. You're suddenly deep in forums at 2 a.m. reading about IMS bearings and bore scoring and whether you really need a pre-purchase inspection or if you can just wing it. You're watching YouTube videos titled Things I Wish I Knew Before Buying a Porsche while simultaneously convincing yourself that none of those problems will happen to your car because your car is special. You know you're being irrational. You know you should probably buy something way more practical, something newer, something that doesn't require you to join 3 Facebook groups just to understand the service history. But you can't stop looking at that listing, and eventually, your finger hovers over a different button. The one that says Contact Seller. Your heart is racing before they even pick up the phone. You've rehearsed what you're going to say. You're going to sound knowledgeable, confident, like someone who's bought a dozen Porsches before and is just casually checking out another one. They answer and you immediately forget everything you planned to say. Hey, yeah, so I saw your listing for the Porsche, right? Your voice may crack slightly. You're 25 years old, trying to sound like you're 40. It's not working. They're nice about it. They tell you about the car. You're not really listening. You're just trying to figure out if this is really happening. If you're really about to go look at a Porsche. A Porsche that might become your Porsche. You can come by tomorrow if you want, they say. Bring it on a test drive. You say yes. Obviously, you'd say yes. You'd say yes if they told you to bring a goat and a priest. You hang up and immediately text everyone you know, I'm going to look at a Porsche tomorrow. Suddenly, it's real. This isn't a fantasy anymore. This isn't just late night scrolling. There's an appointment, an address, a time. In less than 24 hours, you're going to touch a car you might actually own. You don't sleep that night. Seeing it in person hits different. It's smaller than you expected. The pictures somehow made it look different. The paint has more chips than the listing suggested. There's a crack in the bumper, the headlights are fogged, and the wheels have curb rash, and it's absolutely perfect. Because it's real. It's not a poster on your wall or a screensaver or a video of someone else's car. It's sitting right here, and the owner is holding keys in their hand, and those keys might be yours if you hold it together long enough to not blow this. They open the door, the interior smells like someone else's life. Old leather, stale air freshener, the faint scent of gasoline that enthusiast cars always seem to have. You slide into the driver's seat and your hands are shaking as you grip the wheel. The oval gauges stare back at you. Classic Porsche design, the tack right in the center where it belongs. Everything feels purposeful, driver-focused, like this car was designed by people who actually cared about the experience of driving. Even if it's a base 986 Boxster with cloth seats and no options, even if it's a 944 with faded plastic and a cracked dash, it feels special. It feels right. You do the test drive, you pretend you're checking for problems, but really, You're just trying not to stall it and embarrass yourself. The owner points out features. You nod like you understand. You don't understand. You're just trying to process the fact that you're driving a Porsche. Back at their house, you hand over cash. More cash than you've ever held at one time. Money you saved for months, working extra shifts, skipping nights out, eating ramen, all for this exact moment. They hand you the keys, the title, a folder of service records you'll read cover to cover tonight. The car is yours. Holy shit, the car is actually yours. You've never been more aware of every single noise a car makes. Is that ticking normal? Why is the clutch so long? Did you just hit the rev limiter? Was that a grind or just the synchros? You're sweating, you're hyperventilating, you're terrified, and somehow you're smiling like an absolute idiot. You stall it at the first stoplight, obviously, because of course you do. The person behind you honks, you panic, restart it, dump the clutch, and lurch forward like you're learning to drive all over again. Your face is burning. This is humiliating. But you don't care, because you're driving your Porsche home. The next few weeks are an education. You're learning where the clutch grabs, how the gearbox feels when it's cold versus when it's warm, the exact RPM where the flat 6 stops being civilized and starts being something else entirely, usually around 4,500 RPM when the character changes and the engine note shifts from background hum to purposeful howl. If it's a 944, you're learning to work around that notchy first gear that everyone warned you about in the forums. You're learning that it doesn't like to be rushed, that you have to wait for the synchros. That mechanical sympathy is a real thing and not just something old guys made up to feel superior. You're discovering the sweet spot in third gear where the car really feels perfectly balanced between acceleration and control. You're learning which roads near your house are actually fun, which ones have the good corners, and which ones have traffic cameras. You're becoming obsessed. You watch YouTube videos about suspension geometry. You join forums and actually read the technical discussions instead of just looking at pictures. You learn what trailing throttle oversteer means by almost experiencing it and then never making that mistake again. The car is teaching you, and you're becoming a better driver because of it. Sunday mornings are for washing it, not because it's dirty, but because you want to. Because running water over the paint and seeing it shine feels good. Because spending 2 hours detailing a car that's worth maybe $15,000 makes perfect sense when it's your car. You start making small upgrades. A new shift knob that weighs less and feels better in your hand. Better speakers because the factory ones sound like they're underwater. LED bulbs that actually let you see at night. These aren't big mods or anything. They're not making the car faster, but they're making it yours. You start running errands in it, not because you need to, because you want an excuse to drive. The grocery store? Yeah, take the Porsche. Post office? Take the Porsche. Friend's house that's 3 miles away? Obviously you're taking the Porsche. And then there's the empty road drives. The ones at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep and you just need to think. You drive for an hour with no destination, windows down, just you and the car and the road. These drives solve nothing and everything somehow simultaneously. The car becomes therapy. It becomes meditation and the place where you figure things out. And then, eventually life happens. You get older, you get a better job, you move, your priorities shift in ways you didn't expect. The Porsche that was perfect for weekend drives and late night therapy sessions doesn't make sense for your new commute. You need something more reliable. Something that doesn't require you to keep a AAA membership and a prayer. You tell yourself you'll keep it, you'll figure it out, make it work somehow, but you know you won't. So, you write the listing. You take the photos, trying to capture the angles that made you fall in love in the first place. You write the description mentioning the quirks you've learned to love, trying not to sell the car, but the experience of owning the car. Someone messages you. They sound nervous, excited. They ask questions you asked once, and you hear your younger self in their voice. They come by, they look at the car the way you looked at it. They do the test drive, they try not to stall it, they fail, they apologize. You tell them it's fine, that you did the same thing. They hand you the cash, you hand them the keys. You watch them drive away, seeing your first real car disappear around a corner, and something inside you breaks just a little bit. Years later, you'll catch yourself scrolling listings again. looking at Porsches you can't quite justify, seeing that same spark in a listing photo, a Guards red 997, a speed yellow Cayman, a Miami blue GT4 that costs more than your first house, and you'll remember the first time you felt this, the first time a car grabbed you and wouldn't let go, the first time you handed over cash with shaking hands and drove home terrified and exhilarated and absolutely certain you'd made the right decision. That feeling never leaves. It echoes through every car purchase, every test drive, and every late night forum deep dive. Your first Porsche planted something in you that nothing else quite touches. Everyone remembers their first real car, but Porsche owners, we feel it differently. Because our first wasn't just the beginning of car ownership, it was the beginning of understanding what cars could be, what they could mean, what they could make us feel. And once you know that feeling, once you've lived with it in your driveway and driven it on empty roads and washed it on Sunday mornings, you spend the rest of your life chasing that high. Not because the car was perfect, but because the moment was. And that moment changed everything.